first superhero, Superman. Superman was the first superhero. In his first comic books, he wasn't even as powerful as he is now. He could basically leap tall buildings in a single bound and run real fast. He couldn't fly. He didn't have X-ray vision. He didn't have super hearing. He could just jump, and he was really strong. And that was about it. But they built him up over the years. But we got to mention Superman, because Superman is basically a Jew. Let's call him what he is. His creators were Jewish. He has Jewish tendencies, and you know, as always, Superman always stood for, you know, truth. Okay, we go with that. Justice. All right, that's cool. And the American way. And then right there, you got to pump the brakes. You know, and I'm putting that out for all those people who keep saying that you're the original Superman. You know, Superman, once again, is a demonic twist on your original abilities. And still, he doesn't even compare to your highest spiritual abilities when you read that. So that's why I'm so, you know, trying to say how much it affects your mind, because most people, if they got hit with superpowers, they want to be like a Superman. You know, he's a joke. Let's call it what it is. You are in tune and one with everything. You don't need to fly to someplace, you're just there. So by trying to emulate, imitate, or identify with what he's doing, you're kind of pulling it down into a lower level, so to speak, you know. So, but Superman was one of the main mind fucks, you know, if we could say that, you know. You could start off with that. Superman was like the first one that really set off the whole superhero genre. And then, by the time we get to Superman, who was actually in the 1930s, we're talking about World War II, and then we're talking about real pop propaganda for comic books and comic strips. World War II practically sold everything. Everything. All the best cartoons, comics, movies, all the so-called greatest stuff of European media came out of World War II. That by the time World War II came, they was really trying to push out and lock down everything. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Captain America, Superman, all it was anti-Nazi this, anti-Japanese that. And it was also anti-black. Now, Brother Tef, you could just for a second, you know, we was talking about this earlier, just what we're talking about.
I know there was on the History Channel, they had the history of comic books, and they were talking about how the government just snatched up a lot of the early comics, including Superman, which was a little bit more, all the comics started off to be a little bit more occult. They were using a lot of Masonic and occult images. But when the war started, that's when they took those images and made them into propaganda. And I mean, if you, this is going into cartoons though, but even if you go to the early comic books, especially they call them Japs. And then when they're fighting the Ethiopians, don't even, it's nothing, it's disgusting. And although it leads into cartoons again, it's about the propaganda. You could say that they were making fun of Russia, even Russia, which we're supposed to be allies with, Russians, Jews, and Japanese, and obviously the Nazis were the enemy or whatever. But when they had propaganda against blacks, it's like, well, what was the point for that? You know? What war were they at with us? We know what war they were at with us. But they have no excuse to do those images other than a greater war, which was, in their mentality, greater than what they were trying to do. And I think it's, I'm not trying to take...
Oh, no, take your time.
But I think it's a disgrace. We all got to admit it's a disgrace. And I think it's terrible that while they were creating at first these occult images and the government came in too quick and said, hey, look, you can't do everything, but now you got to promote the war. I think it's terrible how what they did was they gave us the images of all the negativity you said about us, the coon, the mammy, this, that, and the other, and that became what we thought of as us. Meanwhile, they're taking our ancient sciences and they're infusing it into their quote-unquote comic books, which is a retardation of our hieroglyphs. And it's just, it's ridiculous to me. That's how they do it. But
oh, okay, look at that, huh?
I ain't trying to take up too much.
Damn. And all of these people have some type of government ties. They're all Masons, if not Jews. Some were Jews and Masons.
Do you believe or have read, was the main target of all this? Were we the main target?
That's the beauty of these kind of rituals, is both.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's to build them up and destroy you at the same time. That's the beauty of these kinds of rituals. When you look at it, you'll see, well, they got a positive black model in there, you know, he's upstanding, and they'll have that positive black model beating up the other natives. And like the main problem I have with a lot of these comic strips is people really begin to identify and sympathize with white people causes. And I mean, that goes on today, that's always been going on, you know, all the time. But going in from the war, after the war, they shut down the comic books, made everything corny. They drummed up some case saying that the comic books were poisoning the kids. Most of the readers of comic books were not kids. They were grown men and women, usually GIs in the army or, you know, adults. But they drummed that up. They put up a fake comic book code, shut everything down, and comic books didn't really come back in again until like the 1950s. But during that time, it was usually like maybe some Archie comics. I don't know, maybe Casper the Friendly Ghost. I know it's not a comic book, but it was something along that line. But in the 50s, things started to pick back up again with superheroes, with The Flash. Not Marvel. Marvel started to the 60s. The thing about it, when I used to read The Flash when I was little, they had all these concepts in The Flash that I thought was, it made sense then because it was a comic book, but I find it amazing now. Flash basically used to move so fast, he couldn't sink in water. He used to run on water. But the thing I found the most amazing, he used to vibrate the molecules of his body so he could run through solid objects. This is in the 50s and the 60s, this kind of concepts are coming up in the comic books. And, you know, that's basically, I say that's like a weird concept because that's basically, I heard about that from like India, the Indian, they're not medicine men, but their tantric doctors used to walk through walls, that kind of thing, something very spiritual. They put that up in The Flash. You know, made him damn touchable, moving so fast the eye couldn't see.